question directly, I do think they'll stay with the venues regardless.
Yeah. Well, I just think that so I started thinking about it from a gambling standpoint, and I'm only on home teams. That's why I love college sports. To me, you just stay on home teams, you get a major advantage. Now, I think here comes the meatloaf players. I call them the meatloaf players because people who bet on road teams in college sports typically eat meatloaf. People that bet on home teams eat steak. And so I think you're bringing
Wow.
in
Wow,
the meatloaf players. You're bringing the meatloaf players back to the
you've
table.
got a line in the sand there, pal. Wow.
Yeah, I do. I have. I think that. Listen, Oregon won last night. Do I think they win that game if there's fans in the stands? No. I think it had a direct correlation to Oregon playing well and winning that game. And I think now all of a sudden, in the Big 12 down in Texas, you have serious home court advantage for some people. In the Pac-12 in California, you don't. But if you're in the Pac-12 in Arizona, there's going to be fans in the stands.
Yeah.
If you're UCLA and you play ASU at ASU, there's fans in the stands. Then ASU comes to your house, there's no fans in the stands.
Yeah. Now, as usual, Tom, I both agree and disagree with you. First of all, I do agree that in college sports, especially, that the home team has the winning percentage is a huge disparity over being on the road. No doubt about that. But there's this thing called the line. I think odds makers kind of, they take that and do
You
it.
hungry? Hey, Ma! Can we get some meatloaf? Chaz, I think I'm okay. I had a bite right before I came over. Thank you. You sure? You know what? I will have some meatloaf. Let's have some meatloaf. You want some? Yes. I knew you'd go. Hey, Mom! The meatloaf! We want it now!
There's your meatloaf.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think the line's there, but the truth is, though, I just think that you have such a big advantage betting home teams, and I think it brings in. I just think this changes all the dynamics. I mean, listen, if you're Purdue, Big Ten has a huge discrepancy home and away in home, right, and home court advantages. So I don't know what's going on in Michigan. I know that they've got that governor that I could see doing the same thing they do in California. Are they going to no fans in the stands? Do you know? In
Not that I've heard of.
So, and then what happens in Indiana, where they're definitely not going to do it in Indiana. But imagine if you went to Purdue and there was fans in the stands, and Purdue has that huge spread, right? Purdue's known to be very good at home and then struggle repeatedly on the road. No matter how good their team is, they struggle a lot on the road. So if all of a sudden they're going into empty arenas, but yet they keep that home field advantage when they're at home, to me, this just throws the whole equilibrium off of a home and home series, a home and away, because it's just going to change the dynamics. And to be quite honest, the funny part is I love listening to Bill Walton, but I could hear his voice echoing through the gymnasium last night when he was talking during the Oregon UCLA game, and I'm like, boy, this is really odd, because you're listening, you just get to realize, if you're used to playing pickup game basketball in like a gymnasium, man, you just go out and shoot.
Yeah, it would be tough to listen to Bill Walton in a quiet place, because he's a great man. Just ask him.
Hey, Pac-12 champions, Conference of Champions, Pac-12. He knows the Conference of Champions. That's why I love listening to him. I just think that I was shocked. I didn't realize that was happening out there in California. I didn't know they had gone. And then when I saw that and I started hearing about that, I'm like, boy, this is really going to send the ripple down effect all through college sports, because if it starts happening everywhere, you're talking about changing the dynamics of March Madness now. Because now, how do you value a win?
Well, it's been less than a week for the national championship game in football, and we saw there that the fans they came out in force. The stadium was packed, right? I mean, I get it. This is Alabama fans. They would brave smallpox to watch the game, but I don't think the average sport fan is really affected by COVID now in terms of
No.
deciding whether they're actually going to go to the stadium. They might decide to wear a mask or not wear a mask, but I think in actual terms of going to the stadium, I haven't really seen a fall off that way.
No, but it's not being dictated by us. It's not being dictated by the fans. It's being dictated by supposedly the powers to be that know what's best for us. When,
Right.
like
That
you
group.
said, like you said, I used to walk around in Florida all the time. I was walking around in Florida all the time, going places, and it was business as usual.
Yeah.
If you didn't listen to the news, you didn't know there was a pandemic. The minute I got up here, not only is it a pandemic here, but supposedly Florida is this catastrophe. If you watch
we're a
the news up
catastrophe,
here,
right? I laugh when I hear that on the national news. I'm going,
when you watch
where,
the news
where
up here,
exactly?
yeah, because it's life as usual down there. People have a great life. Nobody's walking around fearful. Nobody's, sick. The hospitals aren't overrun like they're telling you they are.
Yeah.
You come out to these other places and they tell these stories that just aren't true.
Yeah.
And then you go to those places and you're like, boy, this is a good life. This is a really good life.
Yeah.
So
which again, why I think in a lot of cases, and I think there's a lot of people making up their own mind on this virus thing. And I'm not trying to sway people one way or the other. I mean, if you have immune deficiency and you feel like you need to wear a mask and stay home, by all means do so, right? And I think there's a group of us out there, and I have to fall into that category, which just think that hey, I'd rather, if I'm going to get it, I want to get it over with, right? Because apparently this Omicron virus is so contagious that.
Let me tell you something. You're suspect. Yeah, you. I don't know what your reputation is in this town, but after the shit you tried to pull today, you can bet I'll be looking into you.
that's what I have to say to all those people.
Yeah. Well, anyway, kind of get back to where it falls into college basketball.
Yeah.
I really, what are we now? 6 weeks away from March Madness or so? 6 or 8 weeks, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
No, it's longer than that, but not a lot longer.
2 months. 2
Yeah,
months.
2 months. But I see that as really being kind of the coming out party again for college basketball after the last couple of years. I think
we can't go without it. I mean, we know we can't not have it, right? We can't not have it. We have to have it. How are you guys feeling right now about Michigan? How are you guys feeling about the Big Ten? What's the Big Ten crowd looking like?
I think the Big Ten is down this year compared to past years. I know Michigan's down for sure. Michigan State's at the top of the standings there, along with the other usual suspects. Purdue is very good.
Yeah.
Illinois is very good. Michigan plays Illinois tonight.
I tell you, Wisconsin, with the emergence of Jonathan Davis, I think can surprise some people. I mean, that guy's come out of nowhere to be a closer and a guy that can close out games and win games for them.
Yeah.
Which I didn't see that coming. I definitely didn't see that coming this year. I thought, but I have seen them play now a couple times, and I have been impressed when their big men play tough. A lot of times their big men kind of get pushed around. Cole, I think his name is, or something to that effect. He's a tall, big man. Yeah. He seems to get pushed around, but when he plays pretty well, they become a pretty tough team because that guy, Jonathan Davis, has kind of come out of nowhere for them.
Right.
He wasn't that way last year. He was a freshman last year, and I remember him. He struggled last year quite a bit. But, man, he's hit some very big shots for them this year. I like, when their coach gets them playing as a team, they're definitely a formidable opponent. I still believe that Purdue is the team to beat in the Big Ten. I think all around, I think that's a stacked team. I think Trevion Williams is highly underrated for everything he does. He's like a double machine, and he's a great passer. So.
Their two big guys complement each other very well, and they've got that Ivy kid, and I mean, Purdue is obviously, I think, the class of the league. The Big Ten this year is really the league of have and have-nots. In years past, they've been a very strong league because they've been strong top to bottom. This year, they've got a strong upper half, or I would say a medium strong upper half, and probably a really weak second group.
Where do you put Illinois the way they're playing right now?
I would put them in the top group. I think they're one of those teams who could make some noise in the tournament. They've lost key pieces last year to draft, and they're gonna have to find some guys to step up, and I think they're in the process of doing that. The only real championship contender I see really coming out of the Big Ten, though, is Purdue. And just because they have so much size and so much firepower.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out.
I tell you what, did you see? So Texas Tech, I watched their game the other night against Baylor. Impressed with them. They're a tough team too. They're tough mentally. They don't have, to me, they don't have a superstar.
Yeah.
But they have a couple players that are pretty good.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Baylor is they retooled with Akinjo. So do you remember Akinjo 2 years ago was on Georgetown, and he's the guy that Boeheim, when he left and transferred in the middle of the season, Boeheim said they just got a lot better because they got rid of Akinjo, right? Because they said he never passes the ball. He ended up going to U of A. For a season, got his 14 points, but evidently they thought the same thing there. The other night against Texas Tech, wouldn't you know it, that when that game came down to the line, Akinjo dribbled around with the ball for 30 seconds and then tried to dribble around to the top. He passed it, then he got the ball back, and he took a horrible shot. It was kind of foreshadowing from 2 years ago, Jimmy Boeheim saying what he said when Akinjo was back at Georgetown, and maybe why he didn't stick it out at U of A. I don't know, but they're not the Baylor of last year. They might be number one, or they might have been undefeated, but they're not anywhere close to the team they were last year. They got that Mayer kid still. They got Flagler, but they're missing Mitchell and Butler. So I don't think they're anywhere close to what they were last year.
Yeah,
I still think
the best team I've seen this year, in my mind, has been Arizona. I really like Arizona. They're not only big, but they're big and athletic. And I've been very impressed with them. I think that they're going to make a run in the tournament this year.
What do you think about Gonzaga?
Gonzaga's Gonzaga. See, they have that benefit of that schedule all season long. They keep guys healthy. They rest guys. They're going to make a run. But like every year, they're going to get all the hype, and then when it comes down, they won't be able to close the deal. That's my take on Gonzaga.
So, do you see anything coming out of the SEC? Do you see any SEC? Anybody putting up a fight out of the SEC? Kentucky or anybody like that?
I think LSU is a very good basketball team. I like their chances. Auburn's a good basketball team. Kentucky's going to be heard from before it's all said and done. Alabama's always good. They got a great coaching staff there.
They got two good guards this year. That Quinn Early, I'm actually really impressed with their two guards at Alabama. I think that they could be tough on neutral sites. So they stumbled early. I don't remember who they lost to a team that they shouldn't have lost to early, but then they came back the next night and won the game in a back-to-back. That was back in November. But I'm impressed with their two guards. I think, again, you're starting to see certain teams. Like Oregon, I think, was an anomaly last night. I don't think Oregon's that good this year. But they do have an incredible coach that, Altman does always seem to have that team ready to play and gets them up for big games. And they always seem to make that Elite Eight run in the tournament. So there's definitely a lot of teams that we're definitely taking a look at and watching. But right now, I still think the best team in the nation is Purdue. If I had one team that I thought was the best team, top to bottom, it's Purdue. And it's not because of Ivy. It's because of Trevion Williams, but it's also because of Stefanovic. If Stefanovic shoots the ball well for them, he literally can shoot 50% from three. It's a matter of his head in having confidence in shooting the ball. That Zach Edey guy has gotten a lot better this year. I don't know where that came from, but he got a lot better in the offseason. And then they have Ivy, and I think the other shooter. They have a shooter that's pretty good on Purdue besides Stefanovic too. Yeah. Hunter. They have Hunter. So I think top to bottom, that's the team that I would favor going into the tournament right now would be Purdue off of what I've seen early on.
What makes Purdue so tough is that they're first of all that big guy they got in the center. That guy's gigantic, right? Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to jump to dunk the ball. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah. And they throw the ball into him. He's such a load that they have to collapse on him to stop him, right? Yeah. And then he's throwing it out like these guys that are 3-point specialists. So that's what really makes Purdue tough. And if they really need a guy to go get a shot, Ivy can do that. And so they've got the pieces, right? And I really like Purdue's chances this year. They're going to be good.
Yeah, I think they're definitely built for a big run.
I do want. Can we switch gears? So I want to talk a little bit about college football.
Yeah, let's talk about it. What do you want to talk about?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the national championship game. Did you get a chance to? Did you watch? Obviously, you watched the game.
I did.
What was your take on it?
My take was so I had a different take on it. I thought actually Alabama outplayed them most of the game. I thought in the fourth quarter when Georgia took over, I thought I saw a discrepancy in the way that the defensive backs were being officiated. I thought that the defensive backs for Georgia were very aggressive with the Alabama young receivers when they got down to only having a bunch of freshmen out there. I thought they allowed them to do some things. And when the freshman defensive backs for Alabama put their hands anywhere near Georgia, I thought we started to see some flags. I thought it was officiated based off of a team's aggressiveness and another team's passiveness, and I think it caused some calls, which is
common. It's very common.
And so, I thought that played a big role. I was very impressed with the quarterback from Georgia, to come back and take his team down the field on 3 or 4 plays after having that big turnover. A turnover that led to a touchdown with, where there was a 5-minute review. Weren't sure, was it a fumble? Was the guy in bounds? And the guy had to sit there on the sideline. Bennett had to sit there on the sideline and deal with that. And then he came out and he just fired away, like he hadn't fired away all night. I mean, that was the best drive of the night for him, right? And that was after that big turnover. So that, to me, was very, very impressive. He
got the benefit of his receiver catching a couple of 50-50 balls.
I thought it was impressive that they came back and went that aggressive. I thought, boy, the coaches came right back out and said, be aggressive. I was very surprised that Alabama stopped going to screen passes. I thought O'Brien did a horrible job at not throwing more screen passes in the fourth quarter, that running back Robinson for Alabama, because in the third quarter, they went right down the field on 3 or 4 screen passes to him. That disappeared in the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, the 2 defensive linemen for Georgia kind of showed that they might be the 2 best defensive linemen in football, I thought.
Yeah.
So overall, I thought Alabama had a lot of opportunity to spread the gap in that game and didn't do it when they could have. I thought that they outplayed Georgia for 3 quarters and they didn't spread the gap when they needed to. I was shocked at watching Bryce Young for a full game, in the way that he slings the ball is the best way to say it. It is a very quick, weird release from a little guy, but he is accurate. Man, is he accurate with that ball. I was very impressed with a lot of that. Overall, the game was the top 2 teams in college football this year. That's what it was.
I agree with that. I'd like to say I think the game changed in the fourth quarter when I thought for the whole game, Georgia's defensive line kept gaining ground, and by the fourth quarter they dominated the line of scrimmage which is why and then with the receiver issue that they had at Alabama, they're forced to throw. They really made them play to their weakness, and I thought that was a great coaching job by the Georgia coaching staff. I'm also going to say Georgia got the running game going in the fourth quarter. When that happened, it was game over.
Yeah, I mean, that kid had that big run.
Well, they just ran the clock. They just took the clock. They took the ball and they ran it down their throat when Alabama knew they were going to run the ball, right? So
I felt like the pick 6 that was returned, I felt like it was pass interference. I felt it was pass interference on the pick 6 that was returned by Georgia. And the funny thing is that
did you have a bet on Alabama? Is that why you're saying this?
It did cost me the brackets. I
thought there had to be something, because
it cost me.
You were home.
Yeah, I was angry.
I didn't know that you were
100%
a particular Alabama fan.
Well, you realize that pick 6 was a defensive touchdown, a touchdown over 49.5 yards. So it flipped 2 different. It flipped 2 things in the brackets, and it cost me the brackets. So I was a little bitter, but I did think it was passing. If you look at the play again, you could literally throw a flag of pass interference on it. But you listen, at the end of the day, when they lost that receiver, Williams, and then they were down Mitch and Williams, and now you're throwing to 2 freshmen, it's still wide receiver U. In 3 years, those receivers are going to be incredible receivers, but they're freshmen right now, not used to get, you're taking away 70% of the touchdowns from Alabama's offense and Mechie and Williams. it became a tough one for him. But all year long, I felt like Georgia was the best team. So I don't think like that was an anomaly they won that game. I felt like they were the best team all year long. And had they been able to keep their linebacker, I would have put that as a top 5 defense I've ever seen for college football.
Yeah, they were a very good defensive team, no question about it.
Yeah,
defense carried them not only during the season but also in this game. They kept them in when the chips were down.
Yeah,
and it made a few plays for them to help turn the thing in their favor, and then they found their running game. So
the guy Dean was a lot better than I thought he. I didn't realize how good
McCoby
Dean was.
Dean, yeah.
I mean, I knew Tyndall was good. I knew they had Wyatt, and I think Johnson was 99 and 95. The 2 defensive ends, the 2 linemen, I knew were behemoths and were going to be tough to move. But and I knew Dean was good. I didn't realize he was that good.
Yeah, best linebackers that I've seen in college football in a while. Yeah,
Yeah, they listen. That was a very form. I mean, listen, when you shut out 3 or 4 teams in college football in a season, you're doing something. I mean, it's not easy to shut people out and do it 3 or 4 times. It's crazy.
You know what surprised me about that game, though?
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't be a surprise because, and I think this speaks to where I want to go next, which is the college football playoff discussions that are going on right now. Is that it was the second lowest watched college football playoff final in history. Second lowest in attendance. And I think a lot of that has to do is because it was an SEC only matchup, and I think a lot of the country, especially the West Coast, is disenfranchised by the current CFP format. I mean, do you agree with that?
It's nobody's fault but Oregon's this year. Oregon had the chance. They had it given to them, right? They won the game in Ohio State. It put them in the position where if they win out, they're in their playoffs. They didn't win out. They went out. They lost their players. They got hurt, and they didn't play well. Yeah. I get that because I'm one of those guys that wants to see the respect for the Pac-12. I totally want to see respect for the Pac-12. But I also value trying to have the 2 best teams in college football play each other at the end of the year.
Well, don't you think that would happen in an expanded playoff format anyway? I mean, if they really are the best team.
Well, how do you get there?
Well, this is where I want to go.
How do you get there? How do you get to having that many games in college? With the transfer portal the way it is, with players taking time off, are you telling me that if you were in the 8th seed this year and you were, I don't know, a team that had a transfer portal going on, like a team that had, you don't think those players in the 8th spot are still going to transfer? I think they're still going to transfer. I think they're going to enter the portal immediately. I don't think they're going to say, oh, I'm going to go play in this, knowing they don't have a chance to beat one of the top 4 teams. I think they're going to take themselves out with an injury and say, you know what, I got to prepare for the NFL draft.
No, I think that happens in the current bowl setup, and you could see it. It happened in the Ohio State game in the Rose Bowl, where 4 of their guys sat out the game. Four important guys, right? Sat out the game because the game didn't mean anything. But if that had been a playoff game, if they'd have been in that 12 group, and they would have been, those guys would have played.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm thinking. They're talking about the difference between the 8-team format and the 12-team format. I really like the 12-team format. Let me tell you why. First of all, you get all the conference champions in. It doesn't matter, all the major conference champions, I would say, call it the 6 conferences, get 6 automatic bids, right? Then you get anybody who's undefeated, right? They automatically get in, so that if you get a smaller conference, they get covered. There's no debate about how good they really are. They get to get in, they get to play. And then the rest is all at large. And you can do it by the rankings or however you want to do it. But I think you get to 12 teams. I also think you start the season a week earlier and you have an extra bye week in there to rest players.
Well, if you're going to go to that and you're going to bring in more teams, I think the SEC has to be told they can't play Monmouth in Week 12. I think the SEC teams can't play Gardner-Webb in Week 12. I think that they if they want to bye, they have to play bye, but they can't play these other schools for ridiculous. And when they play them, if you want a scrimmage game, get it out of the way at the beginning of the year.
Why does that matter? If everybody's playing 3 non-conference games, why does it matter when they play them?
Because you can rest your damn players in those games. So it's not really a game, and you're getting TV revenue. You're putting your players on TV. I just don't think it's right. I don't, and you're giving credit to a team for not having a tough schedule. If people are getting knocked down because they lose in the 12th week, and yet we're looking at Alabama and we're looking at LSU play Gardner Webb or playing Georgia Southern in week 12. Yeah, I've got a problem with that, because we're using all this as the basis for who gets in and who doesn't get in. So the Pac-12 will have to still play a Pac-12 team to gain that credibility to get into that playoff, even if there's 12 teams in that 12th week. Yet
well,
Alabama
the conference champion is getting in, Tom. So now we're just talking about an at-large team. And if I'm an at-large team, I find it to be a disadvantage to be playing Gardner Webb late in the season, because you're trying to impress voters.
Yeah, but that doesn't no, it can't be a disadvantage, because they continue to do it every year and they continue to get in the playoffs. So it's not a disadvantage because it's been going on for years. If it was a disadvantage, they wouldn't be doing it anymore. Somebody would have said, stop doing it. We're going to hold it against you. That hasn't happened. So it's not a disadvantage because it continues to happen. So if it was good, but yet at the same time, the Pac-12 are playing people. Oregon lost to Stanford. And then Oregon lost to Oregon State when Alabama's playing Gardner Webb. So how is it that one team has to play their way in, but another team can just skate by and play a Division II team? That's my point. If you're going to go to this, if there's going to be 12 teams and everybody's going to be vying, and we're going to evaluate these teams on a fair playing field, make sure that everybody's playing conference opponents at the same time. Once you get into conference play, you should be playing conference opponents. That's what I feel. I don't think you should be all of a sudden, oh, let me jump out and make an easy one for me just before I have a rivalry game.
Yeah. So we're at 4 teams now. What's your preferred format?
I don't think anything got wrong this year. I think the 4 teams were the best 4 teams, and I have no problem thinking that the best 2 teams ended up in the playoff and the best 2 teams played each other. Now, if one or 2 other teams like Clemson or maybe Ohio State would have gone undefeated, and then we would have had all this malarkey going on, and Cincinnati was there because they beat Notre Dame, then I might have had an argument. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame lost at home now to Cincinnati. I mean, you lost the game at home. I weight road wins way more higher than I would weight home wins.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So when I see a team win on the road, I give a lot more credit to that team than I do a team winning at home. And so to me, there was no argument that Cincinnati didn't belong there, because they beat Notre Dame, who was the next best team that wasn't in. They beat them at their house. And if you look at it, and we all said, well, Notre Dame wasn't that good this year. Well, they beat everybody else. They went out and they beat everybody else. And then the team that beat them at their house is in the playoffs. So I've got no gripe this year. There's been gripes in the past. I've had gripes in the past when I thought, boy, 6 teams should go in or 8 teams should go in, because I think last year when Clemson and Ohio State played and Alabama and Georgia were playing, I thought there was 1 or 2 other teams. There might have been I definitely think that there was a Pac-12 team at the time that I thought could have been in that mix with 1 loss. But right now what we do is we eliminate Pac-12 teams and Big 12 teams the minute they get 1 loss. We don't do that with SEC teams. They're still in the race. But the minute a Big 12 or Pac-12 team gets a loss, they're like, oh, they're probably out of it. And I think that needs to change. So I think it's a year-by-year basis. I think, and you can't do a year-by-year basis. But as far as your question goes, I'm always on a year-by-year basis. I thought this year 4 teams was plenty.
Well, my question really was, do you like 4 teams, 8 teams, or 12 teams?
Yeah, and that's where I would go down to. It depends on the situation. Like this year, I had no problem whatsoever with it only being 4, and I thought they got it right. The best 4 teams were there. The teams that deserved to be there were there. I have seen stuff in the past. Matter of fact, there was a year where Alabama lost the championship, the final game of the season, then won the championship game and got in. And I think the team that they beat in the championship game didn't get in. It was their only loss. And that's where I would have a serious problem. What do we do with championship games? Because do you remember how, like in conference tournaments in college basketball, it used to be the conference championship was very, very important. It was like you played the season to get ranked in the conference championship, like the ACC championship tournament, the Big Ten championship tournament is what you lived for, and then that paved the way for your seeding in the NCAA brackets. Now I think that I don't think we value the championship game as much. I don't know. I just don't think we value the championship games. The Big 12 championship didn't really mean anything this year, did it? Did the Big 12 championship mean, it didn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Baylor now is what, number 4 or 5 in the nation after winning their bowl game, winning the championship.
Yeah.
I think they ended up with 1 loss.
Yeah.
So did they deserve to be there?
Maybe. I don't know. Well, let me ask you this question, because you brought up the home field advantage earlier, and this has always bugged me, and it still bugs me, and it bugs me now. It'll bug me tomorrow. It's that. So we have national semifinal games, right? Michigan's playing Georgia, Alabama's playing Cincinnati. Where are those games being played?
So at championship games, Georgia's playing
Michigan in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, in Miami.
In Miami. And what is Miami? It's SEC
ACC
country.
ACC country.
No. Florida is SEC country. Right?
So you think that there was a home field advantage for
and Alabama's playing Cincinnati where?
Where did they play? In LSU, right? Did they
play in Dallas.
Oh, in Dallas. So you think
Texas. Is Texas SEC country, Tom?
Big 12 country.
Is it? Oh, there's no Texas teams in the SEC?
Well, there are now. I mean, Texas A&M and now Texas.
There was before. Texas A&M's always been in the SEC, right? So I'm telling you, I look at these bowl standings and these playoff games and all these things that happen, and to me, you talk about home field being a huge advantage in college sports. Is that you talk about the West being discriminated against because they're West, the North is discriminated against because they're North, right? They don't play championship bowl games in the North.
I got a solution.
What's that?
Put it in Detroit.
Yeah, you could put it in Detroit. They got a dome stadium, and to their credit, they did do the national championship game this year in Indianapolis. Unfortunately, by that time, all the homerism had already kicked in, and we had 2 SEC teams. Just want to get that.
I just think that they want to, put it in good weather so people can come down to good weather and probably be there for a week. I think that's all revenue based, right? I mean, it's why you have the Super Bowl. You have the Super Bowls. It's why you play championship games typically, and hopefully warm weather climates, because everybody wants to come and enjoy festivities for 3 or 4 days.
Well, that was true during bowl season, but not during it shouldn't be true during the playoff. Is all I'm saying. They got to make these sites.
What do you want to do? You want to like, I was surprised it was in Indianapolis because it was 10 degrees out. I mean, do you literally, if you want to go to the championship game, do you just want to go there and sit in your room all day because it's freezing out and you can't go do anything outside? Or do you want to go in Miami where you can go to the beach one day?
Time in the North. There's plenty to do. Oh my God, you might have to put a jacket on. Oh. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Floridian now, and here I am. I'm in my. You can't tell, but I'm in my Floridian gear, and it's 80 degrees outside. It's great, but it doesn't mean that I can't handle the snow once in a while too, right? Especially for special occasions like a bowl game or a champion or a playoff game. So come on. I'm just saying, let's even it up out there.
So what do you say? So so now there's 12 teams in a playoff. Are you doing round robins where they're at different sites, or are you all going? I'm
saying just like in the NCAA basketball tournament, they ought to try to place teams that are not in their home district. They should play them both teams should be playing a road game.
Speaking of Michigan, here's something I want to find out because I'm having a hard time understanding that people think Hutchinson is better than both the nose tackles for Georgia. To me, listen, Hutchinson had a really good season, but if I watch the 2 defensive ends or nose tackles for Georgia, Wyatt and Johnson, I think his name is, my guess is they're going number 1, not Hutchinson. I saw some guy forecasting Hutchinson is the number 1 pick in the draft. Is that going around the boards on Michigan?
Yeah, it is. So here's the thing: is that take the nose tackle out of it because the nose tackle and defensive end are apples and oranges. But if you just look at the bookends for Georgia versus Hutchinson for Michigan, if you watch the Georgia tape, they double team Hutchinson the whole game. They had a tight end over, then they would bring the back over and they would chip him. He was getting double teamed the whole game. He got a lot of attention. In the Georgia Alabama game, for some reason, I don't know why, they didn't, and maybe it's because both those guys are so good. They didn't double team the edge rushers. They tried to run inside them, and I think that's why you saw the Georgia guys get more pressure. Hey, I'm a big fan of the Georgia defensive ends. I think those guys are really good. Whether they're better than Hutchinson or not, it's hard to tell. I guess
and
we'll
now
find
they
out.
they got that Hill guy up ranked pretty high up there. That safety.
Daxton Hill.
Yeah, they got him going pretty high too. So, I don't know. And what are your thoughts on Art Harbaugh? Is he leaving?
No, he's staying. He's 100%. He's staying.
You don't think he's going to the NFL?
He hired Elston, the defensive line coach from Notre Dame, yesterday to replace Sean Nah, who went to USC, by the way. And so why would Helston come to Michigan if he didn't know who he was going to be working for?
Yeah, I don't know. What I know is, listen, with the NIL going on now, a lot of these pro coaches that were back in college kind of feel like they're back in the pros anyway, in a lot of ways, dealing with the NIL and everything that goes around the players and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he jumped ship to a really good opportunity.
The only opportunity that he could jump ship to would be the Raiders. Raiders are in the playoffs. So, I got to meet Mark Davis a few times when living in Vegas and having him be around, and I just don't see it. I don't see Harbaugh leaving Ann Arbor. His family, his father lives there now. His kids are all in school there.
So
he's
Mark
making
Davis,
as much money now with the new contract as he'd make with the Raiders.
What were you? Where were you going with Mark Davis? He didn't give you the warm and fuzzies. He didn't make you feel good about being around him.
I like Mark Davis. I don't think Mark Davis is a rocket scientist. Let's put it that way. All right. I don't know. I'm just going to say that I don't see Harbaugh leaving Ann Arbor to go to Las Vegas. I just don't see it. Now, Sarah Harbaugh, on the other hand, I could see it because Sarah doesn't like the fact that everywhere she goes in Ann Arbor, she's a known, right? And in Vegas, she would be a lot more anonymous. But that's the only reason that they would make the change.
You don't think the Miami job is appealing to him?
Stephen Ross is a University of Michigan alum.
Yeah.
He's not going to steal their head coach. I don't see that either. He has said publicly that he would not take Harbaugh away from Michigan. So, no, I don't see it.
So now, do you have a second favorite team now for football? Would it be the Dolphins since you're in Florida and it's Ross is a
it'd be the Raiders. I'm a Raiders fan.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, I'm a Detroit Lion fan and a Vegas fan. So
I tell you what, you brought up Mark Davis. He better do something. He better start implementing some rules around there where he cuts somebody immediately if they get a DUI. You can't keep going through this. That player had that DUI last week. The
Ruggs thing, and that's still a controversy in Vegas. I mean, you and I lived there. We know what happened and where that happened. Yeah. And that should not have happened.
No, and I don't know if you've seen the video of that, but the speed at which he was going was beyond ridiculous. And since then, there's been 2 more DUI arrests of Raiders players.
Right.
You would think that would stop immediately.
And Ruggs, after those people were basically burning up in their car, he's telling, "Please, don't you know who I am?" I mean, come on, that guy's going to prison, and that's where he belongs. Yeah,
it would be good to see somebody get into Vegas and turn that back into the place that I used to idolize and be like, "Oh, this is Vegas. You come here, it's Vegas," right. And it just wasn't that anymore. It just wasn't that feeling anymore. And as we talked to Joe about doing our podcast maybe for March Madness and before all this Omicron started coming back up, we were thinking, we had conversations about doing it from the link, right? But am I going to travel out to Las Vegas and if everybody's going to be masked up and divided 6 feet apart again? I'm not going to pay to go watch March Madness in Vegas if it's all masked up and social distancing and stuff. Why would I do that? Yeah,
and to the people that are listening to the podcast who don't spend a lot of time in Vegas, we'll tell you that Vegas is a mixed bag too. I mean, you go to the main strip area and everybody there is masked up. Once you get out a little bit to the outlying casinos, things get a little more relaxed. And the farther you go, the more relaxed it gets. So,
but you have to go far to feel comfortable in Las Vegas. You got to get far away from the strip to feel somewhat comfortable is the best way to put it. Vegas has a lot of issues going on right now that people don't get to see and that get hidden from the general tourists. So, but
I was in the South Point Casino 3 to 4 times a week.
Yep.
Up until a month ago, for the past 2 years. While all these crazy things were being said about casinos, I was there all the time.
Yeah.
And yes, I was wearing a mask, but if I was going to get the virus, I feel like I kind of would have gotten it there, and it never happened. So.
No. And when I hear like South Point, when I hear Red Rock, when I hear World, I do miss World Resort. I miss Resorts World. Even though they're not doing well, I still love that place.
Yeah,
and that place was fantastic.
South Point, my favorite, always will be. Yeah.
And that's, there's definitely things that I miss about it, and I will look forward to going back, and hopefully they get everything straightened away before March Madness, because I'm not going to spend money and go there if everybody's in a mask or they have these big cages up and you can't enjoy yourself for March Madness like we did last year. Last year was great. And I still haven't forgotten Red Rock and the amount of Red Bulls they hooked us up to make sure we got through the day. So those were good times.
I'll never forget 2 years ago, my friend flew in for March Madness, and the first day he gets there, he checks into the hotel, and they told him he had to be out by midnight. He goes, how am I going to go? The airlines are shut down. Where am I going to go? I can't go to the hotel. I can't go home.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? Like getting to Vegas, you're like, sorry, we're closed. I remember we did a podcast when I got back into town, and I left that day. I remember leaving town that day. I think I went to Nebraska for a little while, and the street was closed. The strip was closed, and it was
vacant. Yeah,
vacant.
I remember. Yeah.
So it was just hopefully it's an experience we never have to experience again.
Right.
But it's always good to get back on here and jump on here and talk sports again. Real quick, we got the NFL playoffs this weekend. You looking at anything?
Give me your picks first, and I'll tell you whether I agree with them or not.
I'm definitely taking the Patriots. So I'm taking the Patriots over the Bills. And I believe Mahomes is going to have a good game. I think Mahomes will have a good game for Kansas City. So I don't think it's going to be a good day for the Raiders at all.
I have the Raiders losing, yes.
So if we're talking lines or we're talking sport hitters, so the Bengals are playing I thought the Chiefs were playing the Raiders. I could be wrong, but it looks like the Bengals are playing the Raiders. Chiefs are playing the Steelers.
I'm telling you, the best wide receiver in the NFL right now is Jamar Chase, and Burrows he's surprised me at how proficient he has been, how efficient he has been in the NFL. I see Cincinnati winning their first playoff game.
Well, that's I don't know. Has it been since 91? Have they won one since 1990 or 91? The Icky Shuffle,
a long time,
Icky Shuffle era. So looking at this, listen, I think the Kansas City is going to have their way with Pittsburgh. The game I'm looking forward to is the last game of the weekend, which is the Rams-Cardinals. I want to see if the Cardinals show up.
They've been a funny team. They were unbeatable in the first half of the season. They've kind of faded. I don't like the momentum going into this game.
Last 5 weeks, they really stumbled. And you start to ask yourself, is it because, Kingsbury, just something happened late in the season for him? Because it's the second year in a row that they stumbled at the end of the year with him. And I don't know if it's the quarterback, and I don't know if it's the coach. But, they were, if they get J.J. Watt back, they could create some havoc for the Rams. Stafford is still Stafford. He can implode, right? He can implode.
He'll find that one pick six that'll kill him.
Yeah.
I love Matt Stafford. I'm a longtime Detroit fan, but I do not. He did those things in Detroit. I've seen it during the course of the season here with the Rams. He throws those untimely pick sixes. And we'll see how he handles that in the playoffs this year.
I think the weird line is the Tampa Bay line. I think it's just too high. I mean, 9.5 is a big number for them to be favored over the Eagles. Tampa Bay hasn't had a shutdown defense this year like they had last year, and they've got all those issues at receiver. You don't know who's playing, who's hurt. Is Fournette playing? Evans, is he really healthy? Godwin's definitely not playing. So now you are talking about Tom Brady, but still, if you go back to last year's run, I think, if I remember correctly, they were favored by 8 on the road in Washington.
What's the golden rule of betting, Tom, in the NFL? What's the golden rule?
I don't know. What is it?
Never bet against Tom Brady.
Oh, yeah, your return.
Yeah, if you and I were out there playing wide receiver, he'd find us in the end zone for touchdown.
Yeah, you don't bet. Yeah, the guy's the winningest player of all time. You don't bet against him. I'm trying to understand why the line's 9.5. Is it strictly just because they're scared of everybody betting on Tom Brady? Is that what it is?
Well,
because the line is high.
The line is always about the money. It's not about
Yeah, it is high. That's a high line.
You might want to take the Eagles there, but like I said, I can't break my golden rule. So
no, and today,
I probably took Brady on the money line.
So yeah, and we talked about that. We talked about, can you imagine if you just all you ever did was bet Tom Brady on money lines and he wins at 70% of his games? Think about that. For the course of his career, was it 70% of his games? Just bet him on the money line every game.
You'd be wealthy you'd be almost as wealthy as Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a return on investment. You just got to look. He's.
We'd still be with women that aren't as good looking as his, but we'd be almost as wealthy.
I take it your wife's not around you right now.
Oh yeah, she's not here. Yeah, right now. No, my wife is as lovely as Giselle.
Yes. Hey, speaking of Florida, have you been out to play golf yet? Have you got on any of the golf courses?
I've played twice in the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on the courses down there?
Not impressed so far. But I live in an area that doesn't really. It's not really golf centric. So I'm going to have to figure out.
You're going to have to venture out more challenging courses.
Yeah, got to find something a little better.
All right, so listen, if I'm looking at one line this weekend, right now, man, I'm taking the Cardinals plus the 4.
Me too.
I'm taking the Cardinals plus the 4 against the Rams. I like the 4 number. I would take that number.
I'm taking Cincinnati on the money line. I'm taking Brady on the money line.
I think that the Cowboys at home -3 might be a good play because Garoppolo is banged up beyond belief. They typically will run the ball well, but I think Dallas's offense is going to score some points against San Francisco's defense.
I like Dallas's defense and how they've emerged this year. I think if Dallas wins that game, it's going to be because of their defense. So we'll see how that plays out. But I like Dallas.
Well,
there.
Diggs has that weird stat. So Diggs has that stat where he's got all the interceptions, but he also has the stat where he's given up the most yards as a defensive back to receivers. So he's actually given up a ton of yards. He gambles a lot. Yeah. And he makes a lot of interceptions, but he gives up a lot of yardage too.
You think Dak Prescott is all the way back?
I think he's back far enough. The person that's not back and is a shell of his former self is Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott's just basically done. In my opinion, you got to replace. He's almost time to be replaced.
Right.
That you want to replace the guy as a running back because he just doesn't. I don't think he strikes fear into anybody anymore as a running back.
It's funny because in my recent fantasy playoff draft, which we just did this past week, he went number 3 overall, which was surprising to me. I wouldn't have taken him there, but somebody did.
Wow. Yeah, you look around the league and you watch him run the ball now. To me, he doesn't strike fear in anybody anymore running the football.
Right.
And so they have a really good, Cooper, but they are missing Gallup. So they're missing Gallup. Cedric Wilson had a big game last week.
CeeDee Lamb needs to have a big game for Dallas. It's been a while for him. I mean, I had him on my fantasy team this year, and he had, he looked like the NASDAQ chart. He had up days and big down days. So we'll see what he does in the playoffs, but he needs to emerge.
So the Pats, I do like the Pats with the 4.5. I think the weather's going to be so bad it should affect Josh Allen's ability to throw the ball. They're talking about it being -5, -10 wind chill. and that will affect him throwing the football. He likes to laser that thing, and you can't laser that thing. You can laser it through that, but nobody can catch it without breaking your hands. None of those receivers will be able to catch the ball if he lasers the ball through that wind.
Now there's something to aspire to right there.
So hey, listen, if you're going to run the football, Buffalo can't stop the run. So the biggest mistake teams made against Buffalo this year was they tried to throw the football. They can't stop the run. So the colder it is, the better it's going to, the more it favors.
I got to say, I have a lot of respect for Buffalo.
I think it's a bad matchup. I think they're better off on the road than they are at home.
There's a game we disagree with.
So you like a -4.5? You like a minus the 4.5?
Yeah, I think they're going to win that game by double digits.
I'm actually going to take the Patriots in my brackets and sport hitters, getting 14.2 points. I get Belichick, and I'm getting 14.2. All they got to do is win that game, and literally, you win that game, and you can have the Chiefs. You can take the Chiefs and the Patriots and win those two games. You're going to win your brackets. So that's how I'm going to set my brackets up is with the Chiefs and the Patriots, and we'll figure out who else I throw in there. Maybe the Bucs get 6 points, win one of those two, and pull the Patriots out and collect the cash, collect the winnings. So I don't know.
Wow, it's just that easy. I like that. Yeah.
See how we break it down nice and simple.
Wow, it's just that easy. Wow.
Yeah. No.
Just take the Patriots and the Chiefs, everybody. That's it. I mean, if you follow Tom's wisdom here, the Chiefs and the Patriots all the way.
Listen, time to eat steak.
You hungry? Hey, Ma! Can we get some meatloaf? Chaz, I think I'm okay. I had a bite right before I came over. Thank you. You sure? You know what? I will have some meatloaf. Let's have some meatloaf. You want some? Yes. I knew you'd come. Hey, Mom! The meatloaf! We want it now!
How do you not love that stuff, man? Just some great one-liners ever. And they all equate to us in gambling because it's true. Steak, you have guys that eat the steak and you have guys that eat meatloaf. I want to eat steak this weekend. I'm taking the Patriots. Taking the guys that win. Taking the teams that are used to winning. Take the teams that are used to winning, and then you do pretty well.
Meatloaf, it's the new steak.
Anyway, all right, man. Well, we'll be back, on Tuesday? So we'll get you back on Tuesday. We'll be able to recap some of the NFL. Listen, there's no college hoops tonight worth it. It's Mercer's playing Monmouth.
Hey, Michigan's playing Illinois tonight. I'll be watching college hoops tonight.
Michigan's playing Illinois on a Friday night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They got to play sometime. They've been off forever.
Where's the game at?
I don't remember.
Wow. I got Nebraska at Purdue. Michigan at Illinois. Man, I thought we were looking at. My team's playing tonight. St. Bonnie's.
Hey, East Coaster. It's not Illinois. It's Illinois. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
So St. Bonnie's is not. St. Bonnie's gets Virginia Commonwealth tonight, and they're back. Yeah, I like St. Bonnie's minus the 2.5. I like them in brackets at 8.45.
There you go.
There's a good bracket pick right there. Is St. Bonnie's at home against VCU. All right, I will be watching the college hoops tonight. I just found out. Should be a fun night. And
remember, everybody, the Patriots and the Chiefs. Tom sent you there. Just remember, Tom sent you there. Not me.
Time to eat some steak. Go eat some steak. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Bye. Okay.